If you have ever felt the financial pressure of ministry, wondering how to fund this vision without feeling like a fundraiser, this conversation is for you. One principle that I want to at least get out of the way before we begin this conversation. Generosity is always more spiritual than financial. Okay, let's just go ahead and admit that. Generosity in the local church is more of a spiritual conversation than a financial conversation. Because as we talk through this, I think some of us are going to tend to want to push back on some of this stuff. But everything I'm going to try to talk about is through the lens of the spiritual side of giving, right? This isn't just about money. This is about discipleship first, okay? But too many pastors, I think, treat giving like a transaction instead of transformation. I mean, think about it. Like we pray for more generosity, but what we really might need are better systems. So there's an inherent tension, and I kind of mentioned this already, but there's this inherent tension in this conversation, right? First, I mean, you didn't go to ministry, you didn't get into ministry to raise money. I mean, you went into ministry to make disciples, right? To help people grow in their faith. But, I mean, every vision needs funding. And every church faces the same pressure, right? Big mission, very small margin. So many churches, I think, have what I like to call fundraising fatigue. So here's what we do. We make an ask, we pass a plate or a bucket, and then we just hope for the best, right? And then week after week, we repeat the same thing. Meanwhile, now this is where you may want to push back, but just hang with me. Meanwhile, there are nonprofits in your community, most of which, or at least many, do not share our faith and certainly don't have the local church's mission. And they are outpacing churches when it comes to generosity. And I think it's worth asking why. I think part of it is that they don't take giving for granted. You know what these nonprofits do? They cultivate it. They build trust with potential donors and current donors. They build gratitude. They build engagement around generosity. You know what they are? And I love this word. They are highly intentional. They are so intentional when it comes to fundraising. So your fundraising issues might actually be simple issues of intentionality. Churches that don't see generosity as discipleship, they end up building these paths, right? Let me rephrase that. Churches that see generosity as discipleship, they build intentional paths for people to take steps of faith through giving, because these kinds of churches see generosity as part of a discipleship pathway, right? A giving journey is part of a discipleship journey. So, of course, though, right? Giving isn't caught. Like, you don't just hang around a church and just get swept up in a financial movement, because giving isn't really natural. Generosity isn't natural. It has to be taught. And like most everything connected with discipleship, it has to be taught. So, if giving is more spiritual than financial, and if generosity is directly connected to discipleship, and if giving must be taught, what should we do, right? Well, we need to become a lot more intentional about how we inspire generosity in our local churches. There are 7 specific lessons, generosity lessons, that I think we as churches can learn from nonprofits, because nonprofits have really done a great job mastering fundraising, and they are not afraid to talk about it. So let me talk about 7 things that nonprofits do and how we can translate that into the life of our local churches. Okay, 7 things nonprofits do that we can also learn from. First one, nonprofits do a great job of acknowledging gifts promptly. I was recently at an event, and it was, right before the Jamaica hurricane was going to hit. It was a few days before the hurricane was going to hit. And the event I was at had lots of sponsors. One of them was working specifically to help fund relief in Jamaica. So they made an ask for us to give. They gave us an easy QR code. The number of thank yous that I have received since then, and updates on their work in Jamaica and what's happening in Jamaica, right? Like, now, if you're asking, who's the organization? It's Convoy of Hope. They do an unbelievable job of helping step in when there is natural disasters, but they do just as good of a job acknowledging gifts promptly. They do a great job of asking, but they acknowledge thank yous so quickly. So, and in a way, right, gratitude delayed is kind of like gratitude diluted. So if a person gives to your church, what if we just started thanking them? Maybe within, 24 hours, 48, right? If we can't do it faster. But I wonder how that would change some things for people how they think about generosity. All right, that's number one. Number two, nonprofits do a phenomenal job of personalizing their communication. So think about this in your church. Like a first-time giver, they need encouragement. They need to hear a thank you, but they need to personally be encouraged to continue taking steps along a generosity journey. People who are long-term givers in your church, they need to continually see and hear the vision, how it's coming to fruition, and what's next for you. See, here's the thing. Generic messages feel very transactional. But if we can segment this communication and make it more personal, well, specific messages, that feels transformational. Nonprofits do this very well. The church, usually not so much. All right, number three, nonprofits do a great job of keeping donors informed. Okay, people don't give to black holes, right? They give to impact. So what we should do is share real stories of life change. And as I mentioned earlier, we should segment that communication so that it connects with people in different life stages and different, maybe even stages of faith, very personally. Again, I mentioned Convoy of Hope, but they have sent me so many emails about not just what they are working on specifically in Jamaica, but what other things are happening around the world and how my contributions can now help with some other things too. They are keeping me, I would argue, too informed and almost so, but can you really even do that? Like, it's so informed. And by the way, it's not just stories of water and food. They're sharing stories of individuals whose lives are being changed. Okay, number four, nonprofits provide lots of opportunities for involvement, right? So donors really do become investors. I like those two words kind of compared. So a donor becomes an investor when they see their impact. So in ministry, how could we do this? Well, what if we invited donors more often to see ministry moments in action? For instance, maybe there's a middle school, high school, a student retreat, or a summer camp, or maybe there's a baptism service for elementary children. And of course, you're inviting them and their families. But what if you made 50 specific invites to people who are donors in your church, but have never maybe seen the power of that vision coming to fruition? So many ways that you can invite people to see ministry in action. And that really does help a donor become an investor. By the way, we see this a lot with people who serve in local churches. Often people who serve in local churches are more apt to give to that local church. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons, but maybe one of the more important is they're seeing the ministry come to fruition. They're seeing God in action. So giving to that feels a lot better than giving to what might feel like a black hole. Okay, number five, tailor your approach. Tailor your approach. Not every giver is the same, and nonprofits understand that. Actually, I created something that I call the funding funnel framework. It talks us through 5 types of givers, giving you 5 different messages that all work together to nurture generosity. Every church that works with me, I teach this to them, they begin implementing it, and they all see generosity grow. It's not incredibly complicated, but what it does do is help people understand how to not genericize fundraising conversations and instead speak to segments depending on where they are in their giving journey. Nonprofits do a great job of this. They treat a first-time giver differently than a fifth-time giver, than a recurring giver, than a large donor, right? We should probably think about how to tailor our approach as well. Number 6, demonstrate weekly impact. I talked about this a little earlier, how nonprofits share stories so well, but we have such an advantage over the nonprofits in that Every single Sunday morning, we have a service with lots of donors and potential donors. It is the perfect platform for us. So, what can we do every week that shows how generosity is making things possible, changing lives, families are being restored, communities are being reached, and this is big, talk about what's pending, what's coming up, not just what you made happen, but what we're going to make happen because of ongoing generosity. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a different episode. And then last thing, number 7, nonprofits do a great job of expressing gratitude consistently. I talked earlier about how Convoy of Hope inundated me, but I didn't mind. I thought it was great with thank yous for giving to this specific ask for the Jamaica hurricane. But they don't just stop there, right? And nor should we. Like, we shouldn't just thank people once and move on. We really should build systems that ensure ongoing gratitude through maybe handwritten thank you notes, phone calls, text messages, personal touches. When I was leading at Woodstock City, we would send a handwritten thank you note to a first-time giver. When a person gave for the 4th time, that made us begin to think they're probably beginning to have more of a plan now. We sent them another note with some things that are coming up in the future that we're really excited about, that their ongoing generosity is going to help fund. We would occasionally send little things like mugs or t-shirts or things like that. Not really to, schmooze people up for generosity. This isn't about, building consumeristic thinking, but honestly, putting our brand out in people's homes and in the community was a good thing for the church, but also it made people feel seen and heard when they receive things like that. It's amazing when you write a thank you note on a Monday and you show up on Sunday, how often that person will seek you out to tell you thank you for that. I mean, people appreciate being appreciated, and nonprofits understand that. So each of those 7 things, each of those practices really, in a pretty big way, remove pressure and replaces it with purpose. So when people kind of begin to see purpose behind their giving, generosity actually stops feeling like just an opportunity or worse, an obligation, and actually starts feeling like worship, which is how God called it to feel. So here's the challenge for you this week. Take any of those 7 lessons. And if you couldn't write them all down, don't worry. Go to gavinadams.com. There's a blog post that has all of them listed, okay? Pick just one of those 7 lessons and work on applying it this week. Just one, okay? So maybe it's kind of setting up an automated thank you email that celebrates impact for a first-time giver. Maybe it's identifying who those first-time givers are and just writing handwritten thank you notes. Maybe it's telling transformational story or a story during the vision offering moment this Sunday. Here's the deal, right? Generosity systems, they are not administrative. They are spiritual. When we systemize those things, it can feel like we're being too corporate or too organizational and we're going to forget the organism aspect of the church. That couldn't be further from the truth. When we build systems, we actually can do the organism side better because systems allow us to focus on the spiritual. Systems are really how we best disciple people to trust God with every aspect of their life. Now, as we wrap up, if you would like to take a conversation like this deeper, I actually walk through an entire process that I mentioned earlier, the funding funnel framework. Every person who is a partner of mine has this framework. If you would like to learn more about it, a couple of options. One, just reach out to me. You can go to my website, gavinadams.com, and just send me a quick communication. You can email me directly, gavin@gavinadams.com. Again, not hard to remember that. Shoot me an email if you want to talk more about this. I'd love to jump on a call with you really quick and just share a little bit about how this works and how to begin putting this funnel together. Also, though, last thing, coming up, I have a ministry strategy session where we're going to talk about year-end giving. How do we maximize year-end giving? And guess what? There's a system that's going to help you do that. So again, go to the website, register for that. It's free, 1 hour conversation, totally free. I'm going to give you a bunch of resources and help you build a great plan to maximize year-end giving. Okay, at the end of the day, last thing, Remember, this is not about fundraising. This is about spiritual formation. And when we just stop expecting generosity, we can begin inspiring it. And when we do that, not only does some of the pressure lift, but the mission can grow and people can begin to mature in their faith.